right, so we call this event GameStack Live, and joining me now is a guy who knows a thing or two about why we're here today. Brian Saftler, Director of Marketing, GameStack Marketing, GameStack Marketing. Goodness gracious, I'll get through it. Either way, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, is it good? Last I saw you was about a year ago.
That's right.
At GDC.
At GDC.
And it's crazy because the thoughts and the planning all revolved around going back.
Yeah.
But, here's the P word again. We had to pivot. We had to pivot.
Yeah.
And in a couple of weeks, we made this happen. So first of all, kudos to you and everybody else, because from what I understand, this is news to you that you're going to be up here chatting with me now, right?
Yep.
We can make it happen.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. We're going to talk about GameStack.
Okay, so a year ago, GDC. That's where GameStack was announced. And I know Andrew took me through the booth, and I got to see what the journey was like and what it was. I want to know from the inside perspective, your perspective. Take me through that moment in time.
Yeah, so GameStack's relatively new. I mean, we announced it last year at Game Developers Conference, but that really was just making public things that had already been set in motion at Microsoft anyway, which is bringing together our platforms, tools, and services, really to help game developers better partner with Microsoft and kind of understand what's going on.
So what is that just ultimately about? It's just making sure people understand what's going on and they know, that's the core. That's at its gist, right?
Exactly.
All right, so give me the elevator pitch then, because this is always the fun one. What is GameStack? We've said it throughout the entire show.
Yes.
GameStack, but I think this is gonna be the first time that you get to tell us what that means.
So Microsoft GameStack is the portfolio of developer tools, online services, and platforms from Microsoft that game developers can use to build, run, and grow their games.
All right, that's great. That's the elevator pitch.
Yeah.
I could hear the line, we know it, but I want to know, what do those tools include? What really is in there?
So our developer tools include things like Visual Studio, GitHub, Havok, and Simply Gone, online services like Azure and PlayFab, and then platforms like Xbox, Windows, and Project xCloud.
So let's say I'm a developer. I mean, technically anybody could be a developer.
Yeah.
How in the world do I engage with this huge suite of tools? How do I get started?
Yeah, the simplest way today is just to go to our website, gamestack.com, or to go to our developer documentation, can I say that right? At docs.microsoft, and then just go find the solutions that are going to fit your needs. And ideally, all this is about with GameStack is finding the solutions that can either help enhance, support, or add new capabilities to your existing tool set.
So you mentioned, finding what fits your needs.
Yeah.
Does that mean that every studio has a different stack? Are no two studios alike and that they could have a whole different setup?
That's right. Actually, every studio has their own game stack in a way, which is their unique mix of tools and technologies they use to build their games. And at Microsoft, we look at building our technologies so that we can give more choice and control to that developer to be able to bring the tools that they already know and are familiar with and find the ones that they love from Microsoft.
All right, well, I'm a visual learner. So from what I understand, you've got some slides for me. I want you to take me through what a stack could look like.
All right, let's do this.
And they gave you the clicker.
I got the clicker. We're going to do this.
Mistake.
So I have a little thing down here. We're going to work on this. This is the modern game stack, kind of oversimplified. Now, this is by no means comprehensive, but we're going to use this as a visual representation as we kind of go through.
Okay,
So let's dig in.
Let's see how well I can learn.
I love that this works. This is amazing technology. So developer tools, basically the foundation of the stack. This includes things like your game engine, your code editor, your tools for content creation, your DevOps pipelines. When you think about this, this is where a lot of game developers basically start. They're asking questions like, how big is my team? How big is my budget? What time frame are we talking about here? And then what platforms do I want to build on? And as a result of that, that's going to kind of dictate what game engine you use. Now, while Microsoft doesn't have a game engine, we partner closely with game engine makers out there. But where we come in, and this is kind of interesting, we have things like Visual Studio, which is the best-in-class independent developer environment for Unity and Unreal development. We have a great physics engine in Havok. If you use 3D assets, we have an amazing 3D asset optimization through Simply Gone. And then ultimately, if you have GitHub, or if you have Git repos, or you have a DevOps pipeline you need, GitHub's a great solution for that.
Okay.
Kind of encompasses developer tools, which takes us to the next layer. We're going to talk about services. And again, as we mentioned before, this is not a comprehensive list. This is just us kind of throwing out there this, but interesting thing about—
These are examples.
Yeah, exactly. These are examples. I think the interesting thing about online services is the increasing role that they're starting to play in game development. If you're a single player game and you're using online services to put cloud saves up or leaderboards, you're still tapping into online services. If you are a massively multiplayer game that's across multiple devices and multiple networks, you're absolutely using online services. And we kind of broke it down to these like 5 buckets, data and storage, AI and machine learning, multiplayer, testing, and live ops. But at the end of the day, it's not everything. It's just kind of like how we see this. And so that's where things like Azure and Azure PlayFab come in. And what's really neat about Azure and PlayFab is it's kind of like choose your own adventure, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're looking to build stuff on your own, there are great building blocks for game development within Azure that kind of lets you kind of build this on your own. Now, if you want something a little more pre-canned, prefab, where you can speed up some of your game development, Azure PlayFab's a phenomenal solution. And we're actually going to talk about PlayFab next in the next session, which is pretty cool. But what's neat about PlayFab, again, is it's about live ops, it's about multiplayer services and data and analytics, and they have a phenomenal set of managed game services to help you out there. And then finally, you're building a game to ultimately distribute that game, right? And that's where our platforms like Xbox and Windows and Project xCloud can get you in the hands of more gamers across the globe. And when you think about this, again, that's where you're going to be engaging your players and ultimately making money as a company. So
wild thinking about online services
Yeah.
in a single player setting. Like when you mentioned cloud saves, I'm like, oh yeah, that is an online service. That
happens.
Absolutely.
More and more games are starting to get online. I think that's a really important thing to remember. Is just because not all games look the same, doesn't mean that not all games are going to be able to leverage different types of technology to help them.
Absolutely.
So that's ultimately that's the stack. This is what makes up the modern game stack. This is where we at Microsoft are looking at how we build our platforms, tools, and services together to help game developers really ship and build the next great game.
Cool. Well, thank you for taking me through that.
Yeah.
There's more that I want to know, though.
Yes.
You showed us all this. You showed us the tools. You showed us the services. You showed us how they can get involved. I want to know who's using that.
Yeah. Well, all of our first-party studios are customers of GameStack, right? You think about 343, Turn 10, Mojang, the Coalition. We're going to be hearing from Exile. And the long story short, these guys, they're all building their games on Visual Studio. They're hosting their games on Azure. They're using Azure PlayFab for multiplayer services or live ops. And then they're shipping their games on Xbox and Windows to their global communities of players all over. And then we also have some great third-party partners. Take, for example, like Ubisoft, who they have their game Rainbow Six Siege, which is amazing. They host their game on Azure and deliver really dynamic and immersive multiplayer experiences to gamers around the globe. And then there's like smaller startups like Colibri Games, whose mobile game Idle Miner Tycoon uses PlayFab Live Ops and their PlayFab Live Ops platform to drive player engagement. And so studios big and small bet on GameStack.
Again, I'm going to go back to it because I know you mentioned it, but it's crazy to think that any studio in any size, any capacity could use GameStack. It's it's not one size fits all. It's there for everybody, right?
That's exactly
big and small. So what are your thoughts then on how developers can leverage GameStack for building for the next generation?
So the next generation, I think, is a really interesting conversation. When you think about ultimately what you're building, you're still going to need to use some sort of developer tools, some set of online services or set of services, and you're still going to ship to some platforms. And I think at the end of the day, it's less about what services you're going to use. It's actually how you're going to use those tool sets. Because the next generation is going to bring in new things like more total compute. Whether that's in the cloud or on devices, it's going to allow developers to take advantage of things like hardware-accelerated ray tracing, or they're going to be able to take advantage of faster SSDs or solid-state drives, which could reduce loading time. Even things like Project xCloud is going to help game developers take their games and get it on more devices and in front of more gamers globally. And so really what Microsoft GameStack is about, as we think about the next generation, is about how can we give you tools and services that help you not just build the games for today, but build games for tomorrow.
So it's not just today. Again, that's me as a consumer on the end, thinking about only today, but not thinking that the games of tomorrow are being built today.
That's right. That's right.
So, okay, we've got one that I'm going to throw to you off the cuff here.
Okay.
It says Visual Studio. I've looked into Simply Gone, but UE4 now has its own decimation system that works well. On the multiplayer side, I've been looking into using PlayFab, GameStack, which is why I'm here today. I mean, that's what it's all about, right?
Yes.
Like, how does it feel to hear that sort of stuff?
I think this is awesome. Like, one of the reasons why we made Microsoft GameStack was the fact that a lot of times developers will come to Microsoft and they're using maybe one or two of our technologies, when it turns out there's a lot of other things that are just readily available to them, but they just might not know that they exist. And I think part of this too is to say, can we with Microsoft GameStack help game developers better partner with Microsoft, actually just better understand what Microsoft has to offer them first and foremost. And if we can do that, then we can help game developers build better games. And even that's what today's about. Like GameStack Live is really about helping game developers like find out exactly what is it that they need in their stack and how Microsoft can come alongside and support them.
So with that again, and I know I kind of asked you this before, the developer that may look at that list that you rattled off and said, oh shoot, I'm doing that, like I'm using that. How do they get involved again and make sure they can A, investigate, and B, have a conversation with you guys to see what GameStack can do for them?
I think the first, like just even hitting on that one point is like, it's actually really important to call out that like Microsoft and Microsoft GameStack is not an all or nothing solution. You can come to Microsoft with the tools that you're already familiar with and they're gonna work great with the rest of our ecosystem. I think that's first and foremost to remember. I think the second thing is, if you go to Microsoft or GameStack.com, or our docs site, docs.microsoft.com, you're gonna see some of these solutions in action. You're gonna hear from customers. Throughout today, you've been hearing some of the studios talk about their stories, about the things that they're building, knowing that they're building this stuff using Microsoft technologies. I think that's key. But again, go to GameStack.com. It's the easiest place to find things like you're gonna be able to see what customers are doing, what other developers are doing. You're gonna be able to see some great examples of technical resources and documentation. We have blogs that go up all the time talking about deeper dives into new stuff. Tomorrow is actually gonna be really fun. We have 2 panel discussions. One I get to moderate. One's on the increasing role of online services, which is going to be fascinating. And the second one is on Project xCloud and Xbox Series.
Oh yeah, no, I'm waiting for that one.
I get to moderate. It's going to be sweet. But it's things like that that I get super excited about because again, this is one of those things where it's like, can we make it easier for game developers just to understand like how Microsoft can help them? And that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. Now, we call it GameStack Live, and we just found out what GameStack was, but let's do the live portion. You ready for the curveball? Yeah. We got a handful of tweets that we're gonna check out and catch your thoughts on them. Let's see what folks are saying since this is GameStack Live. And as soon as they pop up here it is. Tom Holder says, thankful to Microsoft GameStack for running GameStack Live and GameStack Live CC, learning a lot about development and community. Yeah, right? The focus on accessibility is amazing. Let's see what our next one is. When life keeps you indoors, pivot. Oh, that's my favorite line, or that's my favorite word in all of this, is pivot. Pivot and go virtual.
You like the social distancing that we're practicing right here?
You know what? I love it because I'm lanky as is and I talk with my hands, so you can stay right over there. Do we have any more tweets that we'd like to see? If not, I can keep going. There we go. David Clark, the Microsoft GameStack talks that got uploaded to YouTube are seriously great. The live stream.
Can I just give a shout out to every developer who on our team like went over and beyond and really helped make sure that their talks, which were slated to be live in San Francisco, got recorded. And then we went through the crazy process of editing them and throwing intros and outros and then sticking them up on YouTube. I mean, like, you'd think it would be easier, but it's really, really complicated. And so just mad kudos and credits to the team who just like went all in and made this happen.
It's tough, right? Because Tech Talks, and we talked about this before we came on, Tech Talks are very direct, they're poignant, like this is what's going on. And now we're doing this bit where we have the interaction, we get the chat. As a matter of fact, we've got 2 more tweets that we can throw up here.
Ayo.
Beautiful and awesome people at the Microsoft GameStack. Keep it going, beautiful folks, and stay safe. You know what? Thank you for that. I appreciate it. My mom never told me I was beautiful, so I'm glad to hear that. All right, last one. I can't see anything on there. That picture didn't come through. I don't see Master Chief. No, you guys, that's fake. That's not happening. Absolutely not happening. He's not behind the camera. I don't see him. Like, I haven't seen him in here one time. They keep mentioning him, but I haven't seen him in the studio.
Yeah, what's going on with that?
That's not real. All right, well, thank you so much. I, for one, look forward to seeing what GameStack developers do and, you know, what they'll dream up for the next gen.
Exactly.